Hello and welcome. Just to let you know, this video is based on a chapter from the book Maza Modume Maze Niantron. For any more details, you can always visit www.schoolfordiabetes.in.
For years, we've all been told the same story, right? Diabetes is all about high blood sugar. But what if that's not the whole picture? What if that's just the final scene in a very long movie? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the real culprit behind type 2 diabetes, and I promise you, the answer might just change how you see everything. So let me ask you something. What if the real fight against type 2 diabetes actually starts years before your blood sugar even budges? What if the problem has been growing silently, deep inside your body, long before any doctor's test gives you a warning? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into. Okay, so when a doctor sees high blood sugar, it's like a detective finding a clue at a crime scene. But it's not the criminal, is it? It's just a symptom. The real culprits, the root cause, are actually two things that sound super simple: taking in too much food, or fuel, and not moving our bodies enough to use that fuel. It's this basic imbalance that really kicks off a whole cascade of problems. And that imbalance leads us right here to what you could call a vicious cycle of fat. See, when we don't move, all that extra energy from our food has to go somewhere. It doesn't just disappear into thin air. Nope, our body starts storing it, and that's when the system starts to get overloaded. Let's trace the path of that energy, shall we? All right, check this out. It's like a chain of dominoes. First, you've got the excess diet. Too many carbs, too much fat. Where does it go first? The liver. It starts to get fatty. Then the overloaded liver pumps out extra fats, called triglycerides, into your bloodstream. And from the blood, well, that fat looks for a new place to settle. And that new place is your muscles. This step right here, fat getting into the muscles, that's the game changer. That's what leads to insulin resistance and eventually the high blood sugar we all know as diabetes. And this infiltration of the muscles has a specific name. It's called myosteatosis. Now, I know it sounds super scientific, but all it really means is fat building up inside your muscle cells. This isn't the fat you can pinch on your belly. This is fat getting deep inside the engine of your body. And once your muscles get clogged up like that, they just can't use sugar for energy properly. This is the real ground zero for type 2 diabetes. You know, this quote really hits the nail on the head. Our bodies don't see a fancy dinner or a quick snack. They see fuel. And just like with a car, some fuels are way more energy dense than others. Think of fats and carbs as high-octane gasoline. If you keep filling the tank but never drive the car, what happens? The tank overflows. Your body's overflow tank for all that unused fuel is fat. And here's the thing. Your body is actually waving red flags long before you get a full-blown diabetes diagnosis. These pre-diabetes stages, where your fasting sugar is a little high or your sugar after meal is a bit elevated, they aren't just random numbers. They're basically your body's check engine light coming on, telling you that this process of myosteatosis, of fat building up in your muscles, is already happening. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the problem. But the great news is, once you understand the real cause, the solution becomes crystal clear. There is an antidote, and it's actually beautifully simple and incredibly powerful. We can break this whole cycle. And it all boils down to one simple thing: movement. It really comes down to this old saying, use it or lose it. And for our muscles, it's literally true. If your muscles are just sitting around, they become storage closets for fat. But the moment you start using them, walking, running, any kind of activity, they turn into these amazing furnaces that start burning that exact same fat for energy. It's a switch you can flip. Now, it's important to note that not all activity does the same job. Let's compare something like exercise to pranayama, or breathing exercises. It's a really interesting contrast. Exercise is what we call catabolic. It uses up energy, gets your heart pumping, and burns sugar. Pranayama, on the other hand, is anabolic. It's about conserving energy, slowing your heart rate down. Both are fantastic for you, especially for stress. But when it comes to burning that fat clogged in your muscles, exercise is the tool for the job. All right, so we know the what and the why. Now let's get to the how. What does this look like in your real everyday life? We need a clear, practical guide, almost like a daily prescription, to start undoing the damage. And that brings us to this idea of a step diet. Now, this isn't a diet in the way you might think. It's not about what you can't eat. It's about creating a balance. The whole concept is to link the fuel you put in your body, the calories, with the work your body does, which we can measure in steps. It's a simple way to manage that energy in, energy out equation every single day.
So, what's the target? What's the daily dose of this antidote? Well, here it is. The number you want to aim for is 10,000. 10,000 steps a day. That's the amount of activity that really starts to force your muscles to burn through those fat stores and get sensitive to insulin again. It's a simple, powerful, daily goal.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds great in theory, but where's the hard proof? Well, it exists. And it comes from an absolutely incredible study that perfectly illustrates everything we've been talking about. It's called the Dallas Bed Rest Experiment.
Just look at the design of this study. It's amazing. It started way back in 1966 with a bunch of healthy 20-year-old guys. They did baseline health tests, then they were forced to stay in bed for 3 straight weeks, total inactivity. After that, they were tested again. Then they went through an intense exercise program. But here's the crazy part. 30 years later, in 1996, the scientists found the same exact guys, now 50 years old, and put them through the same tests one more time.
And the results from just those 3 weeks of bed rest, they were absolutely shocking. These healthy 20-year-old men suddenly had higher resting heart rates, their hearts were less efficient, they had more body fat. I mean, their physical condition had deteriorated so badly, it was on par with a typical 40-year-old. Think about that. They aged 20 years in just 3 weeks of doing nothing.
But this is the finding that just blows my mind. Have a look at this chart. The men, when they were 50 years old and exercising regularly, were in better physical shape than they were as 20-year-olds after just those 3 weeks of bed rest. Let me say that again. The 50-year-olds were fitter than their 20-year-old inactive selves.
So let that sink in for a second. The study proved, without a doubt, that the physical decline from 30 years of aging was less severe than the decline from just 3 weeks of being completely sedentary. This is the ultimate proof that movement isn't just a good idea, it's absolutely fundamental for our health.
And that leaves us with this one powerful final thought. The Dallas study basically asks us this question. Is it possible that 3 weeks of total inactivity is actually more damaging to your body than 30 years of getting older? When you look at the data, the answer seems to be a resounding yes. It makes you realize the real enemy isn't time, it's the couch.